Dead Cells is one of the most satisfying roguelikes I've played. The combat is incredible, the build variety is ridiculous, and there's always another run waiting for you. But after dozens of hours, I found a few things that hold it back. So, is Dead Cells still worth playing? Dead Cells is a roguelike Metroidvania that puts you in control of a mysterious character known as the Prisoner. Your goal is simple: find your way through a massive, ever-changing island filled with unique enemies, dangerous encounters, and powerful guardians as you make your way towards the top. But with every run bringing new challenges and threats, getting there is easier said than done, if you can survive that long. As you expect from an action-focused roguelike, Dead Cells absolutely nails its combat and movement. It's fast, responsive, and most importantly, incredibly satisfying. That's exactly what you want in a game centered around exploring biomes and cutting through hordes of enemies. Each run has you exploring a series of interconnected biomes, searching for the exit that leads to the next area. Along the way, you'll encounter unique enemies, hidden secrets, and valuable loot that all help make your character stronger. Every biome also branches into different paths, encouraging you to experiment with new routes and discover areas you may have missed in previous runs. One of the main ways you grow stronger is by finding scrolls of power, which are scattered throughout each biome. These scrolls don't just increase your maximum health, they also boost the damage of your weapons and skills. There are 3 different scroll types: red for brutality, purple for tactics, and green for survival. Weapon and skills follow the same color system, making it easy to tell which stat they scale with. While you can mix and match different builds, you'll usually get the best results by focusing on one color and using weapons and skills that scale with your highest stat. Even after dozens of runs, trying a new weapon combination can completely change how the game feels. Dead Cells also has an enormous variety of weapons and skills that keep every run feeling fresh. I put dozens of hours into the game and I still haven't unlocked everything it has to offer. One run you might be smashing enemies with a giant hammer, the next you're firing lightning bolts across the room, only to end up finishing the run with 2 frying pans chained together like nunchucks. It's ridiculous in the best way. On top of that, every weapon can roll with different affixes that add powerful effects like burning enemies, freezing them in place, poisoning them, or dealing bonus damage to enemies suffering from certain stats effect. Before long, you'll start discovering synergies where your entire build works together, making every attack feel incredibly satisfying. Even after dozens of hours, there's always another weapon, mutation, or synergy to experiment with, making every run feel a little different from the last. There is so much to discover in Dead Cells, and because of that, your playstyle may differ from one another. My style was to burst the enemy down, kill them before they kill you. As you defeat enemies, you'll collect blue orbs called cells, which act as the main progression currency. Between biomes, you'll meet the collector, who lets you spend those cells to permanently unlock new weapons, skills, mutation, and other upgrades that can appear in future runs. You can also invest cells into the legendary forge, increasing the chances of finding higher quality weapons later in the game. Because you're constantly unlocking new gear, every run feels like you're working towards something, even if you don't make it very far. Unlike many modern roguelikes that permanently increases your character power after every run, Dead Cells stays much closer to the traditional roguelike formula. When you die, you lose your weapon, scroll, gold, and nearly all the power you've built up during that run, including the power cells. The permanent unlocks simply expand your options, they don't make you dramatically stronger. Success still comes down to learning enemy patterns, mastering the combat, and putting together a strong build each run. Story isn't the main focus of Dead Cells, and that's true for many roguelikes. The gameplay is what takes center stage. That said, I wouldn't call the story an afterthought. Rather than telling its story through lengthy cutscenes or dialogue, Dead Cells lets you piece together what happens by exploring the world. You'll uncover bits of lore through scattered notes, environmental storytelling, and the prisoner's occasional thoughts as you progress through each biome. The world has a dark fantasy atmosphere with touches of twisted fairy tales, and every area has its own unique look and feel. Combined with an excellent soundtrack, the game does a fantastic job of creating an atmosphere that makes every biome memorable, even if the story itself takes a backseat to gameplay. I do want to mention that I really enjoyed the Dead Cell art style. What I enjoy most about Dead Cells is just how smooth the gameplay feels. The combat is fast, responsive, and incredibly satisfying from start to finish. Every weapon feels distinct, the skills are fun to experiment with, and the mutations add another layer of customization to every run. The real magic happens when your build finally comes together. Discovering synergies between your weapon, skills, and mutation is easily one of the most addictive parts of the game. Watching the prisoner tear through entire rooms of enemies because everything works together so well never gets old. Another feature I really appreciate is the branching biome system. Instead of forcing you through the same levels every run, Dead Cells lets you choose different paths depending on the experience you're looking for. If I want a more relaxed run, I can take an easier route. If I'm looking for more of a challenge, I can head towards the tougher biomes for better rewards. I also really enjoy the boss fights. They're challenging at first, but they never felt unfair. As you learn their attack patterns and figure out when to dodge or punish, each fight becomes more manageable and rewarding. One feature I wish more roguelikes would borrow is the training room. Instead of having to replay the entire game just to practice against a boss, you can fight any boss you've already encountered whenever you want. It also lets you practice against regular enemies, making it much easier to learn difficult encounters without losing another 20 or 30-minute run. To me, that's one of the smartest quality of life features in Dead Cell. It respects your time while still encouraging you to improve through practice rather than simply making the game easier. One thing I wasn't a huge fan of is how Dead Cells handle its higher difficulty levels. As you progress, the game starts to feel less like play well and adapt, and more like don't get hit ever. Enemies begin dealing massive amounts of damage to the point where taking just 2 or 3 hits can end an otherwise successful run. Some enemies can even teleport to you if they lose line of sight, making it much harder to retreat and reposition when you need a moment to get a better handle on a situation. The prisoner has access to a limited number of health potions, and on the starting difficulty, you can fully restore your potion between biomes. As you increase the difficulty, however, those refills become less frequent until they are eventually removed entirely. What you start the run with is essentially what you have to work with. You can sometimes find potions for sales in shops, but they're expensive and aren't guaranteed to appear, making every hit feel even more punishing. The game also has curse chests, which give you valuable scrolls of power, but curse you in return. While curse, taking even a single hit will instantly kill you, and the curse only disappears after you kill a set number of enemies. On the starting difficulties, these chests are completely optional, so you can decide whether the extra power is worth the risk. On higher difficulties though, the additional scrolls become much more important for keeping up with the enemy scaling, which can make curse chests feel less like an optional risk and more like something you're expected to take. And while the color-coded system is cool, it does hinder build variety when you have to prioritize one color over the other. It's best to stick with the weapon and skills that match said color to maximize damage. You can find legendary variants of weapons and skills that give you the colorless trait that allows it to scale to the highest color and can work with any build. And that's where my biggest issues with the higher difficulties come from. I enjoy Dead Cells because it rewards learning enemy patterns, experimenting with builds, and getting better at the game. But at the higher levels, the combination of huge enemy damage, limited healing, and increasingly dangerous encounters can make the game feel less about mastering the systems and more about playing perfectly. For players who enjoy that level of challenge, it may be exactly what they're looking for, but personally, I found the difficulty curve more frustrating than rewarding, if you play the way the developers intended. If you think the game sounds too challenging, or you're bad at it, like me, Dead Cells has an assist mode that offers a variety of ways to customize your experience. You can lower enemies' health, enemy damage, trap damage, and even respawn at the start of the level when you die. There's also custom modifiers that can be added that completely warp the game. You can make every item you get legendary or colorless, give yourself infinite ammo, infinite health options, and even stop the one-hit mechanic when cursed. I think this is an amazing feature that pretty much allows complete freedom in how you play and how you want to play. I think more roguelike games should have something like that to try out like new builds and new weapons without hoping that they drop. So the question is Dead Cells worth playing? After spending dozen hours with the game, I'd say absolutely. Dead Cells is one of those roguelikes that's incredibly easy to pick up, but has a surprising amount of depth once you start experimenting with different weapons, skills, mutations, and routes. The combat and movement are still the biggest highlights for me. Everything feels fast, responsive, and satisfying, and when you finally put together a build that completely shreds through enemies, it's hard not to want to jump straight into another run. The branching biomes, huge variety of weapons, build synergies, and permanent unlocks also give you plenty of reasons to keep coming back. Even when you die, you're usually learning something, unlocking something new, or thinking about what you want to try differently on the next run. My biggest issues is with the higher difficulty levels. The jump in enemy damage, limited healing, and mechanics like curse chests can make the later difficulties feel less like learning and adapting and more like playing perfectly. That won't necessarily be a negative for everyone, especially if you're looking for an extremely challenging roguelike, but personally, I found the higher difficulties more frustrating than rewarding. Thankfully, Dead Cells does give you a lot of control over how difficult you want your experience to be through its assist mode. You can customize things like enemy health and damage, adjust how much damage traps deal, and even change some of the game's harsher mechanics, So, if the difficulty starts getting in the way of your enjoyment, you have the option without having to completely give up on the game. Overall, Dead Cells is a game I easily recommend to anyone who enjoys roguelikes, action games, or just wants something with a really satisfying gameplay loop. It has a great combat, ton of build variety, meaningful progression, memorable biomes and bosses, and enough content to keep you coming back for a long time. But there's a reason Dead Cells has remained one of the most respected roguelikes for so long. If you're on the fence about trying it, I say give it a shot. Just be prepared to die a lot. Well, that is it, people, for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what you saw. If you have played Dead Cells before, please let me know, what do you guys think of the game down below in the comments. What was your favorite weapon to use? What was your favorite skill? What's your favorite boss? Please let me know. If you like what you saw and want to see more roguelike content, make sure you hit that sub button so you can be notified when my next video goes up and when I go live, because I do stream. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.